Hey, good morning and welcome to the FTN Fantasy Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast for August 22, 2024. We are previewing the NFC South today with special guest Bryan Knowles, who wrote a couple of the NFC South chapters in the FTN Football Almanac. Don't forget, if you haven't gotten your FTN Football Almanac 2024 yet, you need to get it on sale at Amazon or at ftnfantasy.com/almanac. And you get a discount on the almanac if you are an FTN subscriber. And we have brought back our 15% off deal at FTN. Use the promo code FTN15 and you get 15% off your subscription. Fantasy football draft guide, cheat sheets for every league, all of our DFS optimizers, the industry's #1 rankings and projections, the customized tool for your fantasy football for your league. We used to do Kubiak on the old site. That's what this is. And of course, it is the home to DVOA with the new Stats Hub. Promo code FTN15 gets you 15% off, but you do want to sign up now. It is a limited time promotion. So there's been a little bit of change in the NFC South since we wrote the book. We were down on the Atlanta Falcons compared to the market. We are now less down on the Atlanta Falcons compared to the market, although I think we're still lower than conventional wisdom. The simulation in the book had the Saints averaging 9.7 wins, the Bucs 8.7, and the Falcons 7.6.
Wow.
That is now Saints 9.6, Falcons 8.7, and Bucs 8.6. So with the trade for Matthew Judon and the signing of Justin Simmons, our projection for the Saints and Bucs doesn't change very much because except for 2 games against the Falcons, they're the same teams playing the same schedule. But the Falcons go up by 1.1 wins, and they go from a 30% chance to make the playoffs to a 45% chance to make the playoffs. So still lower than the market, but I think a lot closer to what people think about the Falcons. So let's take the Falcons first.
I don't know why they waited so long to address the defense, to bring anyone else in. I know there are probably high-level conversations and a lot of deliberation, but the timing makes it feel like, oh no, our third-round edge rusher got hurt. I guess we got to go sign somebody now. It would have been fine if Braylon Trice was not missing the entire season.
Part of it is, by conventional stats, the Falcons' defense was pretty good last year.
Right.
Not just total yardage, which, as we all know, is a steaming pile of crap, but yards per play, which is much more useful. They were, I think, like a top 10 defense. The problem is you have to adjust for the schedule that they played and various other efficiency things. And DVOA thought that they were a below-average defense, and then they lost Calais Campbell and Bud Dupree. So we had them projected as the worst defense in the league. Now I believe they are 23rd in the defensive projections, so they've hopped up like 10 spots. And certainly the defense looks a lot better with the addition of 2 Pro Bowlers at important positions.
I follow a lot of Falcons media, people I really trust and respect. I don't like trolling them that hard because they're doing their job the best they can, but they're saying things like, we found the missing pieces. And I'm like, the missing pieces for what? For what? What have you found the missing pieces for? And you're right. I mean, it's a good move bringing in Judon. They needed an edge rusher. They needed an edge rusher in March and in 2021 and whatever. Talk to me, Bryan. Walk me through the receiving core, if you could.
They've got Drake London, who is on paper very talented and has shown some, skill. Mm-hmm. Their second receiver is either Darnell Mooney or Ray McLeod.
It's definitely Mooney. Mooney is the number 2.
But McLeod's at least their starting receiver. I mean, their starting slot receiver, and he's a punt returner in receiving clothing.
Yes.
Then they've got 6th-round pick Casey Washington, ready to step in, should anything happen.
Do not confuse 6th-round pick Casey Washington with 7th-round pick Taj Washington of the Miami Dolphins. They are different people.
Or so they claim.
Or he's a very busy dude driving up
busy guy, flying back and forth from Atlanta, Miami, like Deion Sanders used to do.
And
Rondale Moore is out for the year now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess that means a lot of 2 tight end, a lot of Kyle Pitts, but I feel like Kyle Pitts is like we keep waiting, like we keep kicking the body. Like, I mean, his rookie year was good.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was not the problem with Kyle Pitts has always been that the expectations for him coming out of college were so ridiculously high that he was never going to meet them.
Right.
But still, so they've got 2 receivers and a tight end, but then the depth chart really drops off. If they have any injuries to London, Mooney, or Pitts, they're really in trouble on offense.
And Mooney was available because he's often injured, and he's pretty much a slot guy by trade. And Drake London, like you say, Brian, very good on paper, has the skills and everything. We haven't seen that season, and you can list, Desmond Ridder and Arthur Smith. We still haven't seen the season. So this is a team that thinks it's in this win now optimization mode. And if anything happens to Drake London, they've got the receiving core of the 2022 Bears. That's what they've got at this point.
Well, they haven't upgraded at quarterback twice. So that should help Drake London out a little bit.
As starting quarterback and backup quarterback, they're now upgraded. Yes.
Same thing that I've said about, been saying this about Cousins and Rodgers for a month and a half now. I just don't know how to trust 2 older quarterbacks coming off Achilles injuries.
Right.
And that's not meant to be a diss. I mean, Cousins, the last time we saw Cousins, he was better than the last time we saw Rodgers.
Yeah.
But I still feel like the offensive projections for both of these teams come out as very average. And I feel like, that's an improvement over what both teams had at quarterback last year. But I don't know if Kirk Cousins is going to go out there at age 36 coming off an Achilles and be what he used to be, which was like the 9th best quarterback in the league.
Right. And right now, by the way, you talk about the odds, minus 130 to make the playoffs. The Falcons are minus 130 to make the playoffs. Now, of course, never, ever, ever, ever bet on the Falcons. But even under the best circumstances, that's terrible.
I just feel like, it's almost like, I don't know whether it's that the public is overrating the Falcons or that they're underrating the Buccaneers and the Saints, who we'll get to in a minute. But there definitely is. I mean, look, signing Kirk Cousins was a good move. It was an upgrade. Like, we don't know what he's going to be, but if it works out, like if he's the old Kirk Cousins, that's a really good move. But with this defense, if DVOA is more right about their defense than yards is, I don't know whether that's good enough for Atlanta to make the playoffs. Although the schedules for every team in this division are so easy that it's not ridiculous to think that 2 of these teams might make the playoffs, because one of them with the easy schedule could slip into the 7th seed. And I believe the Falcons now have the easiest schedule in the league because of various changes in the preseason. It's no longer the Panthers. It's now the Falcons with the easiest schedule.
It's so bleak. It's hard to even.
I know. The NFC South is not. This is what the AFC South used to be, where we were like, come join us Thursday night for Jaguars Texans. And now it's like, join us Thursday night for Falcons Buccaneers. Here we go. Right.
I didn't read the emails, and I lost track of time a little bit. When I saw Brian was going to be on, I'm like, yeah, NFC West. Yeah, this is going to be a good one. So I'm
that was 2 weeks ago.
A little nonplussed right now.
If you are listening to us live, by the way, don't forget, if you are listening to us as a podcast, please subscribe and like the show. It's the same thing we say. Every podcast says that, but it does help. Rate the show so people find us. If you are listening live, which we do at 11 a.m. every Thursday, soon to be Monday and Thursday, you can, of course, ask questions, and we'll take your questions and comments. And I will note that there is yet to be a comment or a question on today's show because this is the NFC South. And it's the division. It's always been the division going back to our Football Outsiders days that had the fewest number of readers. But it's also the least exciting division in the sport right now. And so, yeah.
Right. And in Tampa, those folks are too old to use computers. They're not watching live streams. Carolina, that's a small market, et cetera, et cetera. Here's my wrap-up thought on this. They're having too much fun in New Orleans to come on a podcast. I can't shake the impression that the Falcons just rebuilt like the 2019 to 2021 Matt Ryan Falcons. Like they just got their old quarterback who's still kind of stable, and they got a couple of weapons and pieces here and there, and they have just built their masterpiece of an 8-9 team.
Yeah. And I realize we're talking about this division like it's so unexciting, but if you are a degenerate gambler, I do believe there is money to be made here.
Okay.
And I do believe it is to be made on the New Orleans Saints, who I've been talking about nonstop for the preseason, as I am the driver of a New Orleans Saints bandwagon that is powered by the phrase damning with faint praise.
It's written on the side instead of like bound for glory. It says,
right. The New Orleans Saints damned with faint praise, boring, dull, and mediocre in a division of teams that are less than mediocre. I do feel like they are. I am with the numbers. This team is the favorite. They were number 15 in DVOA last year. They're number 15 in DVOA with projections. Other than a couple of changes on the offensive line and Kool-Aid McKinstry, it is basically the same team that they had last year that finished 15th. Derek Carr is, and I realize I'm going to get thrown out of the Josh Dubow fan club for saying this, an above average quarterback because 14th is above average.
Barely 14.
Right? Like he has an above average DVOA the last 3 years. But they're like, it's like 3% and 2%. Like
right.
He's basically average. But with the schedule that the teams in this division have, average makes you the best team in this division unless, and this is the worrying thing about the Saints, Cameron Jordan and or Demario Davis get really old all of a sudden.
Which they're already really old, but yeah.
I also, the one thing stopped me from getting on this mediocre bandwagon. There's this rambling, shambling, wreck of a team rolling down, down towards the Gulf of Mexico, is the offensive line. They've lost 3 starters from a year ago, either to retirement or moving on or injury. Luis Fraga, the rookie, has been in and out with injuries. I think he's currently in. They're still counting on Trevor Penning to become something close to what he was drafted at some point. That's the one part of this team which does not feel mediocre to me, which feels actively bad. It's hard to judge these offensive line kind of things, because it's so much how will all these new moving parts gel together. But that's what would worry me if I was a Saints fan. The fact that my average quarterback, my average skill position players, and then Taysom Hill may not be able to do what they do if the offensive line just crumbles into dust.
And I will fully admit that offensive line is the part that our projection system has the hardest time with. Because I don't have like 12 years of historical numbers to really have some kind of variable that represents the offensive line that isn't completely dependent on the quarter, right? I'm not going to use adjusted sack rate because that's so dependent on the quarterback. Like I'd love to have 12 years of ESPN pass rush win rates for every line, but I don't have that to put into the model. So I will admit the teams that we seem to have higher than the market, a lot of times are teams that have offensive line questions like the Patriots and the Ravens and the Saints. But I mean, I'd rather trust a first round rookie left tackle than what Washington is doing, which is a third round rookie left tackle.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's hard to evaluate that Saints line from last year anyway, because they're facing some terrible pass rushes around the league. Their offense was very paint by numbers a lot of the times. We had the whole storyline how Derek Carr was still getting used to the offense in like November, et cetera. So I don't know how some of these guys would actually grade out. Right now, you talk about the market, you talk about the degenerate gamblers. The hairs in the back of my head are standing up. Plus 400, the Saints to make the playoffs. Plus 400. Yeah,
that is, I'm sorry, an amazingly above average expected value bet.
God.
Even if you think we're wrong about the Saints, that should be like plus 200.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a really good bet. We have a question from the audience, and I apologize as my Russian is poor. So I don't know who's asking this. Which division game in the NFC South is most likely to end in a tie?
Buccaneers, Panthers, and it is not close. Buccaneers, Panthers. 3-3. Put it on the board.
Why?
Because I have little faith in either of those offenses and either of those play calling situations. We're gonna get 8 million runs straight into the line over and over again, and we're just gonna run out of time before anyone finds an end zone.
So it's a 3-3 tie type of situation.
Exactly.
Well,
they came close last year, didn't they? Didn't they come close to a tie?
You came down the wire. I think, yeah, that's one of the Panthers' 2 wins, wasn't it? And the Panthers did not lead for a single second in the fourth quarter last season. So, yeah, that must have been a game-winning field goal at the buzzer.
Oh, my gosh.
We can talk about the Buccaneers and last year's incredible third down ability to get around all of those runs. But first, I want to talk about the sponsor of the podcast, kids. It's Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy sports and the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. Underdog now offers a new customer FTN special with up to $250 on your first time deposit. The Underdog app is really easy to use, and new best ball drafts drop every week. With the NFL season just 2 weeks away, now is the time to draft last year's Best Ball Mania 4 $3 million winner drafted his team on August 29th. So you are not out of it yet, kids. Sign up, promo code FTN to claim a 50% deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. NFL season is here, and who better to celebrate with than Underdog Fantasy? So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I feel like, I wonder if I'm not giving them quite enough credit because they did win the division last year on a tiebreaker over the Saints, but so much of their offense last year was based on Baker Mayfield going nuts in 3rd and long, and that just, like, their offense just running into the line for no gain on 1st and 2nd sounds a lot more sustainable than Baker Mayfield making every 3rd and 9 with a pass to Mike Evans over and over again.
The Buccaneers in 2023 went run, pass 53% of the time. Run on first down, run on 2nd down, throw a prayer up to Mike Evans and hope he makes a play.
Which he did a lot, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, throw the ball to Mike Evans and hope he does something is not the worst plan in the world. But there are other things you can do. You have 3 downs before you get there. They ran on first. They had higher than expected run probabilities on 1st and 2nd down, despite being the worst rushing team in the league on 1st and 2nd downs. DB of negative 22.9%. But no, just run Rashad right into the line over and over and over again. Watching the film back to try to write the Buccaneers chapter this year was one of the most depressing experiences I've had in quite some time. It's like, do something. You have Mike Evans. You have Chris Godwin. Throw a deep out. Throw it, even when they did throw on 1st down, quick out, screen, short little slants. Like, Mike Evans is not a yak guy. Send him downfield and give him the ball and make him do something. Please, I beg you. One deep shot on an early down.
Do you have any sense of these new coordinators?
The Buccaneers, Liam Cohen's got, you say, well, he's got the Shanahan background, the McVay background in this case. And so you kind of cover in the general, he'll do the general McVay Shanahan things, but nothing specific, nothing which makes me go, this is what he will bring in particular to the Buccaneers, or this is the guy he's going to unlock for the Buccaneers that hasn't happened before. It's like, he must know what he's doing. He comes from the system where everybody knows what they're doing. And
it's basically the same offensive line that couldn't block for the run last year, except Ben Bredesen at left guard instead of Aaron Stinney.
Yeah.
And the other is Jalen McMillan, the 3rd-round pick, is probably a starting outside wide receiver with Godwin in the slot. It's interesting. All 3 of the kids from Washington are going to start, right? Adunze, I believe, will start when they do 3 wide in Chicago, and Jalen Polk in New England, and McMillan in Tampa Bay.
Wow. Then you switch over to their pass rush, and there's got a lot of questions there. And Yaya Diable's hurt. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka has been battling injuries, has not been himself. And all the guys you remember, except for Vita Vea, they're all gone. So this is a team that on the other end is going to turn around on defense and rush the passer with that much effectiveness.
Right. They're not all gone. I mean, the pass rushers are gone. Levante David is still there.
Who is?
Levante David is still there.
Oh, yes. I meant the pass rushers. Oh, yes. Right. Levante David's still there. He should be an honorary saint. He's so old at this point.
But this is one of those teams that feels very like 7-10.
Yeah.
Like, not bad. Like, I don't know what their over-under is in Vegas, but it's probably right. Like, they're just, I think everybody knows who these guys are.
The hope is that, when Cohen comes in, he can spread that third down success over, the other two downs, and changing play callers gives me more hope than I would if they were running back the same system over and over again. So there's some room for optimism here for me. But I just, having to watch all the games and just seeing the offense, the running game, it was non-functional, entirely non-functional. It wasn't creative. It's not like he was getting tackled behind the line, just getting hit early, no extra yards after contact, just no creativity in trying to work guys into space over and over and over again, and just praying for one of their two big guys to make a play at the end. I don't think Baker Mayfield is going to be like the best quarterback on third downs again. I think the regression is coming.
Right.
Ugh.
I do like Bucky Irving at running back. Maybe that adds a little tiny bit of juice. But I do have to point out, first of all, the over-under is 7.5. I think we'd all be right on the number there.
Bam.
And you know what? You know what Baker Mayfield is in right now? The best shape of his life. Never count that factor out, folks. Factor that in.
Oh, here come the Baker Mayfield scrambles and run options.
Right.
Because he's in such good shape. Here we go.
Right.
All right, let's finish up with the Carolina Panthers, where, the whole season is, can we fix whatever was wrong with Bryce Young last year, right? That's what the whole season is about for them.
Yeah, and on paper, I like the idea. Like, we're going to throw away everything else we have and just put all our resources into getting something functional around Bryce Young. Let's put all our points on offense and see, because the most important thing this year is not winning games. It's not getting to the playoffs. It's knowing if we have to draft another quarterback next year or not. So go out and get some receivers, pay $1 billion to any offensive lineman who is willing to come to Carolina. Bring in a quarterback, bring in a coach who was a quarterback whisperer. Do whatever you have to do to try to figure out if Young is a functional NFL player. I don't like any of the specific moves they've done. It's a philosophy.
Deontay Johnson is an interesting guy when it comes to advanced stats because he does terrible in DVOA, which is in part connected to your quarterback. Mm-hmm. He does much better in the new route DVOA, which accounts for the fact that he gets open a lot and draws targets. Mm-hmm. And he's phenomenal in ESPN's tracking metrics that are based on Next Gen Stats tracking, because apparently he gets open all the time, and then his quarterbacks in Pittsburgh just couldn't find him, except that he's struggling with injuries already. And what's going to happen in Carolina, he's going to get open all the time, and his quarterback is not going to be able to find him. Like, it's the same problem.
You can't fix short. You can't fix too small. He is too small. He was too small. We blue skied it. We invoked Russell Wilson. We invoked Kyler Murray. Those guys were burlier guys. Those guys were a little bit bigger guys. Those guys had other things to put on the table. They were faster. They were brought more as a rusher. Young is going to wash out. You're right. I like the idea. Bring in Deontay Johnson. He's a underneath gobbler of receptions. Xavier Legette could be a yak guy on short passes. But you're right also, Brian, some of the other older players, the veterans they brought in where they just started throwing money at guys, I don't comprehend what they're doing with some of these decisions.
And they got so little in return. Like, when they dismantled their defense, they got rid of Brian Burns. They let Frankie Luvu go. And they got so little back for any of these players. Like, it was 2 years ago, we were talking about Burns being worth 2 first-round picks in the middle of the season from the Rams. And I think they got a third-round pick and a promise, to, send a DVD of the Hard Knocks over from the Giants. And they got nothing. And it's just, you've taken your one strength, because that's the one thing the Panthers had last season, was a somewhat okay defense, and you've entirely gotten rid of it. And what do you have in return? What do you have to show for not re-signing Brian Burns, for not bringing all these players back? You've got an offense we think maybe approaches functional. You've got the most expensive offensive line in football, or at least it was. I think they've gotten past in the last month. You've got the most expensive pair of guards in football.
Right.
In Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt. Those are the two most expensive guards in football.
Right.
just because you pay someone a lot of money does not mean they're worth a lot of money. You don't hand them a large check and all of a sudden they become elite.
The projections are higher on the Panthers than most people, I think, are. I think it's like 7 wins or something, in part because of the schedule. I'm just very non-enthused. They might be the team that I feel like is most likely to miss their projection, but I just don't feel it with the Panthers. I feel bad. I bought into the Bryce Young hype, partly because, look, I am not a scout of quarterbacks, right? I trust the NFL scouts to somewhat know what they're doing, and his performance in college was really good. And it just could be we were all just wrong.
I think we were all being ultra optimistic. And Aaron, we were probably in the same conversations talking about what a great young man, what a great individual he is, what a leader he is, and things like that. And you could probably...
And none of that seems to be wrong, right? That all still goes.
Not at all. He is an absolutely phenomenal 5'9", 190-pound individual.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal guy and studier of film who happens to be my size.
Right.
I am not playing quarterback I wouldn't have, when I was 23, played quarterback in the NFL. So, yeah, I'm just very non-enthused by the Panthers. And by the way, Scott Spratt, who is our resident FTN, former Football Outsiders, Carolina, lives in Charlotte, also very non-enthused by the Panthers this year. So,
no bets, Scott. No bets this year.
He's not buying into the hype, unfortunately. So,
I still think I would take the over because I think it's still a 5.5, win-loss line.
Yeah, our projection system says take the over, in part because of schedule.
Bryce Young almost can't be as bad as he was last year. I think only one player in NFL history has been as bad as Bryce Young was, DVOA-wise, in more than one season in their career. So he almost has to be, negative 30% passing DVOA would be better than he was last year. There almost has to be some kind of improvement. The offensive line may be overpaid. It is better. The receiving core may not be thrilling us. It's still better than what they had last year. There are improvements, but those improvements might just get you to 6-11.
Yeah. Right. And you look at the play callers and the play callers are impressive. Frank Reich was pretty impressive as a play caller entering this situation.
Mm-hmm.
That was a guy who thought, he'll put RPOs in and everything like that and get this guy ready, and it fell apart very quickly. There is also that ownership factor with this team where they can fire everybody in October. The idea that there's a commitment in place that's going to last 12 months with Tepper running the team is wishful thinking, or at least optimistic at this point.
Yeah, I want to like Tepper more because he is committed to analytics, but he does some other stuff that's just weird.
And remember, this is Dave Canales again. That's the run pass guy from Tampa Bay.
Right. So Carolina is going to be run pass, yeah. Only now it's going to be with Jonathan Brooks once he's healthy.
I would feel more optimistic about Dave Canales if someone else was calling the plays, because everyone talks him up so much. Both Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield credit him a lot with their thing. He's got a lot of that Pete Carroll upbeat, excitement, energy kind of vibe going to him. I like him on every day of the week except for Sundays.
All right,
he's calling the plays, right?
He's calling the plays.
Okay.
Yeah. That does it for the NFC South, kids. Thank you for listening to and watching the Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast. Bryan will be writing for the FTN DVOA page regularly during the season, so make sure to check him out there. And of course, he's also on Twitter as Bryno, BRYKNO, and on Threads as BRYKNO_. If someone else must have gotten to Bryno first.
That's exactly what happened, yes.
And what's wrong with you if you don't subscribe to the Mike Tanier Substack? I don't understand. It is miketanier.substack.com, and the backup quarterback rankings are coming.
Yes.
And I believe Eagles top 5 all-time Eagles quarterbacks.
Also coming very, very soon.
Coming very soon. Yes. And I'm, of course, Aaron Schatz, FTN. Don't forget, promo code FTN15 gets you 15% off for the next couple of days. Please subscribe. And we will be back next week at 11 a.m. Thursday for the final one of our division previews. That's right, kids. We've saved the biggest, baddest division of the 80s for last, the NFC East.
Wait, we're not doing the West?
We did the West 2 weeks ago.
We did the West.
Yes, we went west to east instead of going east to west. You are the one who wanted to save the East for the last division, too. That was your idea.
You're telling me that there's some email where I suggested this? Is that what you're saying? Folks,
Yeah.
It's a lie. It's a contemptible lie.
Next week, Dallas, Philadelphia, also Washington, and the New York Giants. So we'll be talking about all those next Thursday, the 29th, at 11 a.m. Until then, everybody, enjoy the last weekend of preseason football. So long.